This week's episode is brought to you by A. Fenway Crowley, Seymour Wieners, and Jack Mehoff. Thank you, A. Fenway Crowley, Seymour Wieners, and Jack Mehoff. It's with the generous support of wicked wizards just like you that helps keep our intrepid bunch of 10-foot-tall shaven were-rabbits graced with enough lubrication to keep them sliding at supersonic speed through an abandoned series of transport tubes on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, where they can be ordered via the dark web to be dispatched as conflict mediators during hostage situations. If you'd like to help us keep providing tall rabbits for hostage negotiation, or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended version of this unhinged episode, but all our unhinged episodes, which after you log in are conveniently browsable from within Spotify. But that's not all. I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server, where you could talk with other fans and the host of the show about your magnetic dream zebra. Dream zebra. If you're enjoying the free section of the show just fine, and would rather save your $5 for a mid-sized pouch of generic brand American cheese, then please consider giving our humble show a like, subscribe, or share on your social media platform of choice. Heck, you could even give us a good review, or best of all, recommend the show to a friend who likes stuff as weird as you do. If you'd like a monthly tarot reading over video chat from yours truly, our $20 a month tier earns you exactly that. You can even save them up. On this week's episode, we discuss the highly contentious and taboo topic of masturbation, to explore if there's any physical, mental, or spiritual benefits to either extreme of abstinence or uninhibited indulgence. We talk about the popular no-fap movement, government psyops of a sexual variety, and folk superstitions before digging into the hard science behind some of the claims commonly made by either extreme. What happens in our brain during orgasm anyway? Ted Bundy and Marquis de Sade then make an appearance to discuss their thoughts about pornography. In the extended version of the show, we discuss semen retention as a traditional occult practice, the physiology of orgasm, male and female, and what any of this could possibly have to do with the Qabalistic Tree of Life. Then, Aleister Crowley shows up to the party to explain how to achieve Eroto-Comatose Lucidity, and what the ancient Egyptians thought about the topic of sex and sanctity. As a warning, we talk quite a bit about sex in this episode, so it's not safe for work or kids. This episode might also be offensive to people who feel strongly polarized on the issue, because we're exploring the nuance behind a lot of big claims from both sides. We also decided it was probably best to proclaim from the rooftops that we are not kink shaming anyone, but there are some yucks. And we are also advocates of sexual freedom as long as all parties involved are capable of and do in fact consent. Thank you everybody, and enjoy the show. What did the sign on the door of the escort service say?
What?
Beat it! We're closed. A dad tells the son, "Stop jerking off! If you do it too often, you'll go blind." The son replied, "Dad, I'm over here!" What did the banana say to the vibrator?
What?
"What are you shaking about? It's me she's gonna eat!" And what do tofu and a dildo have in common?
What?
They're both meat substitutes.
Yeah.
Hello everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just wrestle with abstract philosophical labyrinths of lexicological absurdity in a vain attempt to confuse God into existing. Nay, we also spend an inordinate amount of time sussing out once and for all whether or not there is any danger, physical, mental, or spiritual, to rubbing one out, or if we've only been told that because it's actually the key to self-mastery and dominating the multiverse for fun and profit, because this week we're discussing masturbation, the no-fap resistance movement, pun intended, and the magic of orgasm. I'm your host, Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by the Madam of Manual Override, Mari Sama.
Greetings.
The mighty Master Baker, Malachor 5.
Is this a dry rub or do you need some sauce?
And the Heavenly Hand Waver, Hecka Astra.
Hello. I am actually pretty good with my hands.
Don't you be getting any ideas! They're mine. She's all mine.
I just work with my hands for a living. That's all.
Now, if you're not ready to hear an episode about people touching their genitals, if sexual content bothers you or you have kids in the room, kick them out or turn this off or play another episode. You've been warned. We're talking about fapping.
And no fapping.
This is a adult content warning right here, okay?
No kids allowed.
It has often been said that if you want to find the truth, you have to be willing to get your hands a little dirty. This is especially true when it comes to the issue of the power behind the human orgasm. For most human beings, this biological function either directly or indirectly drives their entire life, and often even comes to define it. It can be said that the most important decision any of us will ever make is who we choose to shack up with, whether that be for the night or the rest of our lives. And yet, our drive to combine with another person stirs suddenly and incessantly, without consideration of practical affairs, lurking just below the surface, ready to rise up and swallow us when we least expect. The result can be disease, conflict, heartache, and if you're lucky, the two most challenging things of all, love and children.
Aww.
Even without God, humans would, well, they'd probably still fight over it. George Carlin once pointed out that all the bullets, bombs, and missiles we project at one another are, of course, penis-shaped.
And of course, the bombs and the rockets and the bullets are all shaped like this.
Simplifying all of human history into, what? They have bigger dicks? Bomb them. Well, this probably has at least a little to do with aerodynamics. We would be daft if we didn't intuitively understand that the very power of life and death resides, for man and woman, in those soft mucosal membranes between our legs, which then, for better or for worse, are never more than an arm's length away. With this in mind, it only makes sense why religion would seek to constrain this awesome power to the dictates of doctrine, and deem all instances of its use outside of the church-sanctioned ritual of marriage as taboo. And that, of course, says nothing to relegating women and children to little more than property. This leaves anyone curious enough, especially the would-be witch or wizard, to find the truth for themselves regarding this awesome power, and the most easy way of rousing it: masturbation. Also known as wanking, beating your meat, flicking the bean, scratching Yoda behind the ears, oozing the noodle, double-clicking the mouse, marching the penguin, stirring the pepper, or feeding the horse. My favorite.
Feed the horse, yum, yum.
I like pitching the tent, shucking the corn.
Choking the chicken?
You guys remember Rocko's Modern Life?
Yeah, the choky chicken.
Man, naturally, figuring anything out for yourself is difficult, and considering the material, it's pretty easy to get distracted. Then the benefits and detriments claimed by either side, well, they both claim that the effects come on subtly, and it's hard to separate those from bias, the placebo effect, etc. That begs the question, how can somebody actually make an educated decision then? Worse yet, the people most passionate about the subject contradict and disagree with each other bitterly. What is the reality? As Robert Anton Wilson once said, the border between the real and the unreal is not fixed, but just marks the place where rival gangs of shamans have fought each other to a standstill. In today's world, this gang fight usually occurs on the internet, especially in anonymous, uncensored image boards like 4chan, where zealots for abstinence host impromptu support threads, often sandwiched between explicit imagery shared in others. These abstinence support threads are usually labeled no-fap or semen retention general, which sounds like a rank in the military, and are most frequently found under the paranormal subcategory due to the implied understanding that wresting this awesome power from the death clutch of compulsion is heralded as the secret to attaining a litany of amazing powers. Before investigating if their claims could possibly be true, we should look at some examples.
So, as per my homework this week, I went and found some of these no-fap in the semen retention general threads of 4chan. The following is from the current running thread on X, and there's always at least one. In regards to total abstinence from masturbating, it says, reported benefits include increased vitality, mental clarity, reduced stress, increased motivation, increased energy, improved focus, healthier hair, skin, and eyes, deeper meditation, improved astral projection and lucid dreaming, deeper voice, improved mood, greatly improved testosterone levels, improved physical strength, and much, much more. On long clean streaks, many report benefits that transcend current science, like a sort of magnetism or higher vibration or aura that attracts and appeals to other living beings, a higher perception, a stronger and intimidating aura or presence, a deeper connection with nature, an attractive body odor, which some people refer to as perhaps pheromones, and many, many more.
To greatly oversimplify, abstinence is said to generate a strong current of animal magnetism. Supposedly, chicks just notice you more, bro. As appealing as some of these things sound, in most cases, they can be imagined, achieved through placebo effect, or cultivated with just a little practice. And then it only takes a few minutes of browsing to notice the most adamant subscribers to this philosophy are usually right-wing conspiracy theorists, some totally batshit crazy. Mari found an exquisite example.
So some of the posts in favor, I found this really interesting long one.
Disclaimer, it's a bit offensive and does not represent the views of anyone on this podcast. They're merely being presented here for educational purposes.
There is an esoteric black magic side to the porn trends published online in mainstream culture over the past 10 or so years. Look at the main things you would see on Poll, for example, starting 10 years ago up till today. There was a steady increase in interracial and then cuckold and then incest and then transsexual. The first were all about the division and dissolving bonds between people, contrasting races, and black and white was the obvious, like the dualistic Masonic checkerboard and so forth.
It's the Masons!
Let me continue.
The racial division and stirring up hatred and resentments. Then they pushed cucking, which dissolved and destroyed marriages and relationships and trust between intimate partners. Then they pushed us with all the step-parent and stepchild stuff, beyond which dissolved the family bonds and healthy relationships between relatives, both biological and otherwise. Finally, they pushed the transgender and transsexual stuff, which was the opposite, and some Baphomet-style merging of male and female with the ultimate endgame, the Coomer male going from a straight man jerking it to a woman in a bikini or short dress, to fapping to dudes with full-on dicks and tits. Salve et coagula.
I mean,
Whoa! We got an expert over here!
there's a lot of these kind of posts, but he continues.
They dissolve the normal human bonds and relationships in all forms and refashion things into the satanic merging of genders just like their Baphomet god.
Thou hast been accused of the terrible crime of spitting upon the cross and kissing of the devil's butt.
Porn is ultimately run by Kabbalists. In order to open up the cave of Lilith in your mind and heart and bring you into the Kippah, the tree of death. Choose God and escape the spell, my brothers.
Well, as you can see, this sort of dollar store occultism mixed with old-fashioned racism slithers pretty much everywhere beneath the no-fap movement, and you should keep that in mind.
And a lot of the posts on these threads, though, in support are usually just people like rallying each other or trying to give positivity. Like someone asked some advice on how to stop thinking about it. Someone replied, convince yourself whatever you need to do will get you laid for motivation. Or meditate and convert the semen to ojas, which is an Ayurvedic concept of the life force energy or radiance of your well-being. And he also adds, learn to internal orgasm. Somebody else posts, let's talk about the day semen retention benefit starts. Day 1, hope. Day 7, high tea. Day 21, it becomes a habit. Day 70, you become God.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000!
Let's focus on creating good posts, shall we? Anyway, so it's a lot of circle jerking, no pun intended, because that's not what they're out to do.
No circle jerking.
But not many people are convinced that holding it in is the most beneficial and healthy option. Many anons rejecting the no-fap movement cited post-nut clarity as a useful benefit to rubbing one out. These naysayers also scoffed at how strict the people practicing it can be about abstaining, to the point of accusing them of having a fetish for orgasm denial, hurling petty insults like incel or idiot, and even accusing them of giving themselves testicular or prostate cancer.
You're killing yourself. I really care.
Yeah, right. Some would argue that moderation or even edging but not releasing are just as good as quitting altogether. But the most committed practitioners make note that all stimulation must be cut out to channel the energy into alternative non-sexual pursuits.
Just for clarity, people who don't know what fapping, no fapping, and edging are, do you want to do a quick summary?
You know,
Well,
fapping is when you... your genitals.
it's the noise you make.
Yeah. And edging is when you get really, really close to orgasm but not have one. And usually this is done for a prolonged amount of time, but no busting.
Through all these debates, I eventually realized that semen retention is more closely related to occult practices and mystical practices, which is strict and it allows no room for lust or stimulation, even with a woman. On the contrary, no-fap encourages men to use the energy to find a woman to share the pleasure with and to avoid porn and climaxing without a woman present at all costs. So in their case, no-fap, edging would be allowed.
It's very polemical amongst no-fappers if edging is allowed or not. Some are like, this is as bad or worse than fapping, while others are like, no, this is the secret key. This is the ultimate no-fapping way. It gets really litigious.
They just keep arguing. Like, there were so many arguments about that. So
It just goes forever and ever and ever. And anyone who disagrees with you is CIA. That's just how it is.
Yeah. Speaking of the CIA, I found another thread in which Anons lamented that no-fap is a psyop. The first post says, my face when no-fap is a CIA psyops because their agents are tired of watching us masturbate. And then another reply further down said, I'd say there's a good chance it's lefties wanting to make us miserable. Be incels, can't get girlfriends. All we have is jerking off, and they're trying to gaslight the idiots on here that not jerking off gives you superpowers, so you remain sexless and jerk off less and are miserable. It is so stupid.
Honestly, those are valid possibilities. You know what's really funny about that is because it does proliferate in the alt-right sphere. What if that first suggestion is correct? Because the intelligence agents are all watching the alt-right because that's the new thing, right? It's like, oh, the domestic terrorism, blah, blah, blah. And then
it's like, oh, he's beating his meat again. I wish they'd stop doing that. Hey, I have an idea.
Yeah, they hire all these boys to watch. And they're like, God, I wish these Hitler lovers would stop beating their meat to I got an idea. We'll just pull out this Ayurvedic stuff and just tell them that we're going to explore these possibilities in this show. We're not stopping until we know.
Wait, so like they put the porn there and then they were like, oh, damn it, now we have to watch them masturbate to the porn.
Yeah, it's just bullshit though. Like a lot of this is shit posting, to be fair, but
I mean, if that's true though, and it's just like this chain of command where somebody at the top is really getting off on all of it.
Always is.
But yo, I posted in the main thread asking for some examples of anti-no-fap propaganda and was told promptly to search it on Google News. Nearly all of the results were antithetical to the idea.
So you go to no-fap thread, you're like, I want to hear the other side. What is the opposite of what you people think? And they're like, just Google it.
Like every mainstream media article that came up was like against it. I think I found only one like on the fence post, and it was like not a mainstream website.
So you would think if you went to look this up on Google, you would find responses like, well, it doesn't really do anything. It might benefit some people's marriage. Some people might benefit from learning impulse control. It could just be a fun challenge to try. Nothing like that.
Or
Nothing.
Like,
it's always like, don't do it, don't no fap, please, whatever you do, fap right now.
Yeah, here's some free porn. Yeah, it's just like, but the thing that was weird is that they don't even discuss like spiritual implications of it. I don't know, it was like a 1984 moment. So I guess I'll like dip my toes in and like read some of these to you real quick.
It's interesting because a lot of the studies that are pro-porn are actually funded by people that are promoting porn.
That
like
make it or reap benefits from selling it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why you get so many conflicting studies regarding porn and masturbation, is because it depends on who's funding the study. So a lot of times, unless you're actually going to like university studies, you're not going to get anything of any substance. And even then.
It's just how like cigarettes are not addictive.
Yeah, said the cigarette company. One of the first things that popped up was an NPR article called Masturbation Abstinence is Popular Online. Doctors and therapists are worried. Yeah, okay.
They're worried.
Yeah, they're so worried for you.
Yeah.
So this one kind of goes over the history of it online, and it mentions the Reddit forum for no-fap that was founded in 2011 by an Alexander Rhodes, who was in college at the time. His ideas and the concept of no-fap as a movement kind of blew up when this guy was interviewed by a radio show guy named Gary Wilson. He was a former massage therapy instructor in Oregon, and he died in 2021, but he ran a website called yourbrainonporn.com. And I think he was like trying to expose like the harm psychological effects of overstimulation from porn.
I have seen this website and I've clicked on it and looked through it.
He also did a TED talk about it. He was interviewing people like that anyway, and the article goes on to describe him. While he was neither a medical doctor nor a PhD scientist, he was an adjunct biology instructor at Southern Oregon University for a combined 4 months in 2005 and 2010.
Oh man.
Like already discrediting his idea by being like, well, this guy is not really educated. Basically what the guy was saying is that back in the day, you couldn't see, a hot girl more than like once a day. And now you see them, like you can see like 100 of them in like 10 minutes. So with the way that our brains are, like a hunter-gatherer brain, he was arguing that the overstimulation and the oversaturation of the porn market is something our brains haven't caught up to, and it could be harmful. The video, even from his TED Talk, now has a warning that says that several of his assertions aren't supported by medical or psychological research. So interesting how they keep trying to shut someone up that wants to talk about it. So no-fap's message today is strongly aligned with Wilson's arguments that watching porn is addictive, it causes conditions such as erectile dysfunction and brain fog, and can even voluntarily change one's sexual desires. So also a sociologist, Kelsey Burt, was interviewed, and she wrote a book called The Pornography Wars. And she claims that once someone is in no-fap spaces online, it's a short leap from self-help to more extreme misogynist messages. Quote, "We have historical evidence that white supremacist groups from 100 years ago were instructing men that they shouldn't masturbate in order order to sort of maintain their virility and strength, said Burke. And then we see these messages being repeated in the present day. Proud Boys tells its members that they should not look at pornography and discourages masturbation. Burke thinks that acknowledging the risk of extremist beliefs finding new audiences in masturbation abstinence communities would be a more productive way to address the issue. But instead, there's just a really clear shutting down, says Burke, citing as example the no-fap X account's response to NPR, which I'm sure that they're like poo-pooing the article, and Burke is like, see, they're like calling you guys dumb, so that means that they're indoctrinated. It's just circular logic. So the next article, ditched masturbation to up your testosterone, new myths about a safe and healthy practice. There is no scientific evidence that confirms any of the negative effects associated with this practice of pleasure. Masturbation has many physical, psychological, and social benefits. It increases dopamine and oxytocin levels with its resulting drop in cortisol. It is probably the main one on a physical level, says Sergio Olve, educator and sex therapist. So basically, there's no scientific evidence that this is bad for you. You should just keep masturbating because it's good for you and it's good for your partner. Next article, No Nut November is finally over, and now men are embracing Destroy Dick December. Destroy Dick December.
Nice. Yes.
So you can see the counter movement here is mocking the No Nut November, that's like baby's first no-fap. That's like normies do this. It's just taking a break from doing it over a month, and it's harmless. A lot of people do it. But we have to have Destroy Dick December to show them what dummies they are. Anyway, moving on, they got a doctor for this one. Dr. Rena Malik explains that the benefits of not nutting could help boost your fertility when you finally do have sex, but overall, there wasn't much of a reason to do it, especially not for 30 days.
She continues, people can get a lot of pain and discomfort in their pelvic floor or their testicles. Hello, blue balls.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it really doesn't help you as much as you think it does. So again, discouraging. And then the New York Post actually had an article as well about this No Nut November. Is it safe or healthy to give up masturbation for an entire month? And they also interviewed the same doctor, Dr. Malik. So again, she's talking about, the poor pelvic floor muscles carry a lot of stress. And if you hold it in, you're just stressing those muscles out. So, and she said pain with ejaculation and testicular pain and pain during defecation are possible symptoms of pelvic floor dysfunction. It's like, you're going to ruin your bowels if you hold your semen in, guys. Don't do it.
You make the poo-poo painful.
It's definitely not all the cheese you ate. It's definitely that you're not masturbating.
Yeah, or that more masturbation is good for you. Like, do more of that. They admit, like, excessive porn consumption is harmful and all that, but at the end of the day, they want you beating your meat.
All right, how about this one by the Jedi Council?
Oh my God. Again, when I first glanced at the body of this, it looks almost like it's in favor of no-fap, but then you quickly realize this is just a huge joke. The Jedi Council encourages no-fap policy for improved force sensitivity. So this just appeared in some nerd gaming journal website. So quote from the article, when a Padawan masturbates, they expel nearly all the midichlorians within their body in one fell swoop. Clearly, this is not the will of the Force, said Jedi Master Ki Adi Mundi, who claims his own phallic visage has nothing to do with his staunch support of no-fap. The Jedi Council will no longer sit back and allow Sith infiltration, Sith indoctrination, Sith subversion, and the galactic Sith's conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids. I had an aneurysm after a while because all these articles are just horseshit.
That last one seems reminiscent of Jack D. Ripper's proclamation and Stanley Kubrick's How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Yeah, that's the point. They're taking a nerd from nerd to pulling out of nerd culture, and they're basically making fun of the idea that you could gain anything from not masturbating.
Yeah, I mean, even Stanley Kubrick all the way back in the black and white film era. So this is not a new idea. The mainstream sentiment is basically no-fap is dangerous. You need to be jerking off, otherwise your pelvic floor muscles will get sad and the poo-poo will hurt.
And you'll just be dumb. You'll just be a dumb incel.
And if you really step back and look at it, look at Wolf of Wall Street. What's the key to success in that film? Well, those are rookie numbers. You gotta bump those numbers up. You gotta disappear into the restroom and jerk off 5 times before you go trading. You need your head to be cool, says Matthew McConaughey, etc.
I remember during the pandemic, there was some news going around saying that masturbation and busting a nut was gonna keep you safe from the virus.
It's just such a farce.
I think stuff like that gets people to go over to no-fap.
Probably. I mean, it's just blatant. I mean, they're just making stuff up at this point.
So, what is the truth? After all, the thought of ruining one's long-term health and spiritual vitality for a momentary burst of pleasure is enough to ruin the experience for some of us, me. But this is nothing new. It is, however, only recently the mainstream has fully embraced masturbation as a healthy means of self-care. For centuries, the church and whatever passed for medical science at the time was united in the opinion that choking the bishop was to be avoided at the peril of one's health, physically and spiritually. It's been nearly 1,000 years since Peter Damian, a doctor of the Roman Catholic Church, wrote his Book of Gomorrah, addressed to Pope Leo IX, saying, "Masturbation is the lowest grade of homosexual sin, and that if left unchecked would ascend by grades to fondling each other's male parts, which would escalate to humping between the thighs, and finally, if left unabated, even in the rear."
Gasp!
In response to sentiment of this sort, William Blake once wrote, "As the caterpillar chooses the fairest leaves to lay her eggs on, so the priest lays his curse on the fairest joys." That said, if the fear of becoming a homosexual didn't scare you, there was also an exhaustive list of symptoms, diseases, and health complications promised to those who spent an inordinate amount of time strangling the old cyclops. One particularly colorful example comes from Le Lever Sensitière, an illustrated warning of the deadly perils of self-abuse from 1820. This text details the tragic story of a healthy and vibrant young man who, through his indulgence in the vice of masturbation, leads progressively, symptom by symptom, to his own bitter demise. Although the podcast format does not encompass the full experience, the text offers, as the centerpiece of the work, a hilarious yet detailed series of cartoons, kind of like in the style of Monty Python. The text reads,
He was young, handsome, his mother's fond hope. He corrupted himself. Soon he bore the grief of his error. Old before his time, his back hunches, a devouring... Ziggy, goddammit! It's my cat, it's not a child, I swear. A devouring fire sears his gut. He suffers horrible stomach pains. See his eyes, once so pure, so brilliant, they are extinguished. A fiery band envelops him. He can't walk anymore. His legs give way. Hideous dreams disturb his slumber. He cannot sleep. His teeth rot and fall out. His chest burns. He spits up blood. His hair, once so lovely, falls as if from old age. His scalp grows bald before his age. He hungers. He wants to satiate his appetite. Food won't stay down in his stomach. His chest collapses. He vomits blood. Pustules cover his entire body. He is terrible to behold. A slow fever consumes him. He declines. All of his body burns up. His entire body stiffens. His limbs stop moving. He is delirious. He stiffens against death. Death gains strength. At the age of 17, he expires, and in horrible torment.
Yeah, if that were true, a lot of us wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, they had no idea what the future was going to lay down on them.
Sounds like some harsh propaganda to me.
I had ulcers around that age, and I felt like him for a while. It was probably my fault. As you no doubt noticed, a number of these symptoms are the same ones claimed by no-fappers and semen retainers we find online today, but much more severe, of course. The claims made today imply that masturbation carries with it a more subtle threat, which makes the narrative all the more believable. Worse yet, some claims can even be argued to be supported by modern medical research if you squint and take a little creative license. Well, today it seems a bit ridiculous to believe masturbation can directly result in full body sores or coughing up blood. There may be something to be said for its effects on male vitality and energy levels. Maybe. For instance, a 2001 study published in the World Journal of Urology, which we grabbed from NIH's National Library of Medicine, details the neuroendocrine response in males after 3 weeks of abstinence. 10 healthy adult males were studied. Their blood was analyzed before the 3 weeks of abstinence, then afterwards and during arousal and orgasm. While orgasm did not affect plasma testosterone, higher concentrations of testosterone overall were found after 3 weeks of abstinence. Furthermore, orgasm tends to see a significant spike in blood pressure, heart rate, plasma catecholamines, and prolactin. In effect, both sexes experience elevated levels of prolactin for some time after orgasm. While prolactin is associated with relaxation, it's most connected with lactation and breast development. Unless a woman is pregnant or breastfeeding, her prolactin levels usually hover above where a man's normally are. In both sexes, elevated levels of prolactin are associated with infertility, lack of sex drive, and a milky discharge from the nipples. Yummy. In women, it also can cause vaginal dryness and irregular periods. In men, elevated levels of prolactin are associated with erectile dysfunction, low levels of testosterone, and growth of breast tissue. That being said, a 1998 study showed that prolactin aside, neuroendocrine levels of testosterone and other hormones associated with growth, skin, and hair health were mostly unaffected by masturbation. Generally speaking, this more or less disproved a large swath of symptoms claimed by the establishment for centuries. Even still, though, the devil may be in the details, and those are worth discussing. Now, even though wanking off doesn't seem to have a significant effect on the overall levels of testosterone, a 2007 study shows that frequent carrot chafing in rats is associated with a decrease in the brain's androgen receptors, while another study in the same year showed that overly eager rat fappers also saw an increase in estrogen receptor density. For those unawares, this does seem to indicate that beating off constantly seems to show a decrease in the usability of boy hormones and an increase in the lady ones. Well, this may be enough to send some dudes running to the monastery. It has been demonstrated that anxiety, depression, and guilt tend to suppress testosterone far worse than chasing the tartar sauce rainbow. So in reality, how you feel about masturbation is a bigger influence on your testosterone and energy levels than the act of masturbating itself. This is interesting to consider because it means the people who find it difficult to stop fapping or feel intense remorse after doing so are poisoning themselves with toxic amounts of stress, which essentially has the opposite effect of all of the good things no-fap is claimed to be able to help you achieve. This feeling of shame is precisely what the believer is also meant to call upon when they want to begin the cycle over again. Day 1, hope, etc. Here, if we were strict materialists, and we were only concerned with raw biology, the discussion could end here. But it seems clear that the struggle to fap or not to fap is truly waged in the mental or even the spiritual domain. For instance, if the no-fap movement turns out to be wrong in its presentation of the facts, it can absolutely still have a powerful effect on the mind, and only then by extension, the body. Well, it seems min-maxers and folks like professional athletes may find some benefit to intermittent abstinence. The no-fap movement and its bold claims, medieval philosophy, and likely deleterious effects on the mind of its boldest adherents is the perfect candidate for being a potentially active psyop directed at the general population. As wild as this may sound, it is far from unprecedented. In fact, all major combatants in World War II used pornography at least a little bit as part of their psychological warfare operation. The Germans were particularly well known for their ambitious attempts in this department, which despite their best efforts, regularly backfired. This usually entailed throwing leaflets out of planes which would then rain down on the enemy soldiers or population. Lieutenant Colonel Mahmoud Khan Durrani recounts how Japanese military did little to modify the ill-founded methodology the Germans insisted should work. As a prisoner of war, he had heard a lecture given by a Japanese official on how leaflets should be prepared. One of his 6 recommendations was the leaflet should have, if possible, the picture of a beautiful woman, after the method used by the Germans in the First World War. This device would ensure that the soldier would be attracted and would be unable to resist looking at the picture over and over again. That part was at least true. This would rouse his passion, and his heart would be inclined for love and to hate fighting.
Yeah, I bet that worked real well.
Yeah. Tell me again how to prevent earthquakes using a sheep's bladder? As we discussed in our episode devoted to this topic, the method didn't work very well on the Allies. Turns out the boys just love porn. Even when the subject matter was suggesting there may be somebody with a different phenotype back home regularly plowing their wives, the Allies were usually just happy to see some boobies. Despite these well-researched failures, innovation continued well into the modern era. One particularly controversial instance of attempting to fap the enemy into submission came as late as 1992, when, as the New York Times reported, along with various others, that the Israeli fighters had captured 3 television broadcast stations and began transmitting pornography to the Palestinian citizens who were already trapped inside due to the conflict. According to one 34-year-old Palestinian mother named Rima,
the pornographic movie started on Al Watan television at around 3:30, and that I have 6 children at home. They have nowhere to go with what is going on here and can't even watch TV. It's not healthy, really. I think the Israelis want to mess with our young men's heads. I don't know if that's a good enough voice.
Well, it wasn't Palestinian, but we get the idea.
I can't do a Palestinian accent.
So once again, this seems to indicate that one's mental orientation towards the illicit material is the all-important factor. There are studies that back this up. When we consider this, the idea that the no-fap movement may be part of a larger agenda seems, well, a bit more compelling. If nothing else, Mari has certainly proven to us the issue has polarized people to quite an extent, which when we step back for a moment, seems like it might be generating a lot of negativity. On the one hand, being offended by the sight of cleavage sounds like a difficult way to live. On the other, being hopelessly addicted to an ever-narrowing niche category of porn to which all but the slightest amount of joy has withered away from a seemingly endless cycle of compulsive and ultimately unsatisfying corn shucking also sounds a bit like a drag.
Makes sense to me. They're like two extremes of the pendulum swing.
And so this begs the question, if fapping has such a negligible effect on the body, is there really any harm to watching pornography or whacking off?
Well, in reference to whacking off, according to a 2003 study led by Dr. Gert Holsteg of the Department of Anatomy and Embryology at the University of Groningen, a significant decrease in amygdala activity was observed during the manual masturbation of male participants by their female partners. The amygdala has several functions, among which is emotional processing, especially when it comes to vigilance and fear. It also plays a big role in instinctive or motivational behaviors and decision-making, like fight or flight, for example. So this activity decreased during masturbation. The largest increase of activity was observed in the cerebellum that controls motor functions and emotional processing, as well as a strong activation in the mesodiencephalic transition zone, and that's an area containing the dopaminergic cell group. This plays a hugely important role in a variety of rewarding behaviors, and it's actually the same area of increased activity associated with cocaine and heroin highs.
Woo!
So this study also pointed out that this reward system is crucial for the continuous reproduction of the species, and as such, orgasm is a most rewarding behavior in your brain. Even though the participants had their eyes closed during this study, the researchers also observed activation of the secondary visual cortex, the same region that is active during visual hallucinations or when you have mental images like visualizations in your mind's eye.
Keep that in mind when we talk about the Qabalistic Tree of Life.
And it might also be a good indicator that, because this is a study on males, that men are very visual. So even with their eyes closed, they have a visual aspect to the masturbation process. Then, interestingly, another study from 2009 compared males and females in a similar masturbatory study, and they found that during stimulation for both sexes, the results were very much just like those stated above, but there were some primary differences. In females, the motor cortices, the somatosensory area 2, and the posterior parietal cortex were more active than in the male participants. Respectively, these areas have to do with control and voluntary movements, the processing of sensory information or aspects of touch, such as shape, size, and texture, and lastly, complex cognitive function and attention. So for example, the motor cortex has somas that generate action potentials down to the spinal cord, which I think is interesting for a Kundalini topic. The secondary somatic region is associated with spatial and tactile memory regarding sensory experiences, and then the posterior parietal cortex is linked to spatial awareness of self and surroundings or object, and the attention for upcoming events or movements, etc. Now with males, however, the right claustrum and the ventral occipitotemporal cortex showed greater activity than in the female participants. And the right claustrum has been related to higher order functions and consciousness. That's kind of a big bomb to drop for a spiritual topic, but and the other, the ventral occipitotemporal cortex, is associated largely with visual perception of objects, written language, and visual patterns. So again, we have the visual aspect higher in men. And mind you, all of these differences were just observed during the stimulatory phase of the study. Then during orgasm, only one significant difference was observed in male brain activity, being that in males, the periaqueductal gray matter was active. So this is involved in motivated behavior, learning and action of defensive and aversive behavior, and the supraspinal modulation of pain. So again, we have a spinal connection that maybe we could relate to Kundalini and different variances between the sexes. I think that's kind of interesting.
If you would like to read an occult text that more or less explains these esoteric relationships in the body, I cannot recommend more highly Robert Anton Wilson's Prometheus Rising, which turns some of these data points into occult wisdom that can be digested by the brain. It's incredible. Do check it out.
So then that brings us to the feel-good chemicals that are released through sexual stimulation in the body, such as dopamine and oxytocin. Those are the big ones. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's produced in response to sexual stimulation, and it's a big part of why it feels good. And with orgasm, the hormone oxytocin is released. The larger the amount of oxytocin released, the larger and more intense the orgasm is. So then we're dosed once more with dopamine for that relaxing post-coitus afterglow. Likewise, the larger the amount of oxytocin and prolactin that's released, the greater the refractory period will last. And I know that we'll touch on the refractory period later.
No, don't touch on the refractory period. It's sensitive.
Okay. Sorry. But that's basically your downtime after orgasm. So oxytocin, known as the love hormone, can give us those feelings of bonding, security, and trust, but oxytocin's effects are suppressed by testosterone.
Oh.
Yep. So this may have potential relations to sex addiction rates being generally higher in males than females, as well as a psychological difference of association with sex with bonding or emotions depending on testosterone levels of the individual. So interestingly enough, oxytocin has shown great potential as a combative approach to addictions. We're talking like drug addictions. So many people suffering from addictions may not be getting adequate amounts of oxytocin from social interactions, interpersonal relationships, or even partners, especially if their testosterone is suppressing it. One study noted the following.
Negative behaviors associated with withdrawal and long-term consequences of substance abuse, such as anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal, are all reduced by administering oxytocin. This indicates that targeting the brain oxytocin system may be an effective treatment for all stages of the addiction cycle. Hugs, not drugs.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because we know with drug addiction, it plays on the dopamine relationship. And so it's kind of, but we're not getting that oxytocin love hormone from, heroin or cocaine or whatever. So it's kind of interesting that this is a probable solution for it. And obviously, this relationship between physical pleasure and rewards can become in itself a harmfully hedonistic loop to get caught in. While the direct effect on physiology may be insignificant, sexual activity, including masturbation, can still take on an addictive or harmful quality, which may then be acted out through problematic behaviors, too much fapping. So also, for example, while vibrators in and of themselves are not harmful, they may be used in unhealthy ways that could potentially result in a kind of chasing the pleasure dragon scenario. Pornography can also act in a similar fashion, where overconsumption of it requires higher and higher levels of stimulus until the bar is set so high that you can't climax until there's choking, bloody violence, and a monster tentacle dildo in your ass while a sex doll and watching VR Fuda hentai.
Whoa.
Woo!
I don't know. It's the first thing I thought of. So other examples which have actually shown up in medical journals even long ago include anecdotal stories of urethral stimulation, known as sounding, where the urethra is stimulated by inserting a rod-like apparatus into it. Over time, the diameter of the tapered rods increases more and more. And there's even one really old medical journal that stated that a teenager got an infection from sticking a twig down his urethra while masturbating in the woods.
And I've seen that happen too with the vibrator thing. Like you start out with like a tiny one of those little bullets, and then it gets to the industrial sized back massager.
Yep. I mean, I worked in a sex store for 8 years, and it was in a very small town, and there was quite a few repeat customers. And I noticed over the course of 8 years that some of these regular customers needed more and more and more powerful until it was just insane. And that was my first realization that like some people can, overdo it. So escalation of stimuli can occur on a rising scale, and that's for both physiological and psychological stimulation.
At some point, you just have to buy a Harley Davidson.
Isn't what the heck is that one crazy one? I forget the name of it. It's like a giant saddle looking thing, and that shit is like ridiculous.
A Sibian?
A Sibian, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like if you need a Sibian to get off, like you might have done yourself a bit of damage.
Like I said, at that point, just buy a motorcycle.
I don't even think that could do it.
I know somebody who's a manager of a housing project for Skid Row homeless people that are trying to get their lives back together, right? And there's like some tweaked out, dudes that are into sticking things up their ass. And this person I know has to go in their house and repair things when they are tweaked out and they take all the wiring out of their walls or something. And they'll have just like a whole wall of giant dildos and like all this lube, and it's a mess in their house.
Oh, no.
These are real things. People like these kinds of addictions are insane, and it's not just one people in one of these buildings. It's like multiple tweaked out crazy folks in downtown Los Angeles. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I mean, don't kink shame the man because he likes to put enormous objects in his butthole. That's his business, right?
Until he f***s up and the hospital has to look at it.
They get paid. That's their job.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm just saying it gets pretty extreme, and it progresses.
Sibians and gerbils.
So have any of you ever heard or seen that movie, A Serbian Film?
No.
It's a pretty insane movie about a porn star that is trying to get out of the industry, and he agrees to being in an art film of sorts. But it turns out that the director is making a snuff film that also includes children.
Woo! Is this Jeffrey Epstein?
It's probably a true story for all we know. But the main character at one point is given some crazy horse arousal drug, and he does some truly up shit towards the end of this movie. I don't really recommend watching this film, but at the same time, it's one of the most shocking and disturbing films ever. And there's actually kind of a good message behind it if you're able to read between the lines. But the director worked on this film for like 10, 12 years or so. He had these ideas brewing in his head, and he was inspired by real life hardcore porn that was coming out of post-communist East Europe in the 1990s. And this particular region, and during the 90s in East Europe, the porn industry began to normalize this gonzo style. And this means that it's like really exaggerated, or it's immersive, and it makes you feel like you're in the scene. And it's a lot of close-ups or POV shots. Funny enough, the people with the cameras in this scene have to like grind up on the dude or stand in a way where that dude's ass is just like in their face the whole time. But, when you start to combine the gonzo format with the scenes themselves showing a woman get picked up off the street and essentially pumped and dumped in a car in some woods where there's like poor people around them that are kind of like able to watch from a distance, and then the guy just like finishes off and then just like gives her to them. It's kind of like, what the fuck? Like, this is an interesting evolution in porn, like, because it wasn't always some raw, up close thing. Porn was a little bit more artsy and had a silly script and a set involved.
It was like really bad acting with huge dicks.
Right. And I think one of the differences too with the point of view shots is like revolutionary for it, because they found that the more immersive style of shooting it, actually it gets you more addicted to it quicker. And you can see this like, because in the old porn, like you said, the corny acting and whatever, but you can see the man's face. It's like from a back perspective, like you're watching from the side of the room. Whereas these are like, it's like point of view, like you're in it. And just a side note, most hentai is drawn in this fashion. And they even, like, if they do show the male, they have no face. So it's more easier for the reader or whoever's enjoying it to like self-insert. It makes you more addicted to it.
Side tangent, for some reason, the Russians also perfected action movie edits. It's bizarre that they would also innovate in porn almost 100 years later. The Russians are gifted filmmakers. Let's continue.
And of course, these scenes in these hardcore porn films, it's a lot of choking, slapping, anal, and it looks like it's painful for the girl sometimes because, the dudes are usually huge, and it's relentless, not kink shaming either. Some people are into it and some it's consensual. I get that. But the director of a Serbian film notes that the violence that he's alluding to in his film is a realistic next step for the hardcore porn addict to progress into. So from hardcore porn into violence, he's saying. And he's not making an objective statement about people who consume pornography. He is touching upon a valid assumption, though, linking porn to violence. We have a few good real-life examples of this being true, it seems. Between the years 2002 and 2004, a man named Ariel Castro kidnapped and held captive 3 young girls in his house up until 2013. Eventually, one of the girls escaped with her 6-year-old child, and she notified the police. Castro was swiftly arrested. He pled guilty to 937 criminal charges, which included rape, kidnapping, and aggravated murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with an additional 1,000 years on top of that. He was interrogated and made some interesting statements about his addiction to porn, leading him to commit these horrific acts. He said, quote,
"My addiction to pornography and my sexual problem has really taken its toll on my mind. I believe I'm addicted to porn to the point that it really makes me impulsive. And I just don't realize what I am doing is wrong. When I picked up the first victim, I didn't even plan it that day. I did not prey on these women. I just acted on my sexual instincts because of my sexual addiction."
These people will say anything they think other people want to hear, just to play devil's advocate.
Hecka, please keep this voice.
It's like a dirty nickname.
I want you to say, "I am not a crook."
I am not a crook.
Oh my God, it's so
So we have an even earlier iconic example of someone being totally open about their sexual deviancy, and this was a man named Marquis de Sade. Sade was an 18th century writer who loved to write about his views and love of pornography. He was arrested for sex crimes, pornography, and blasphemy, since Sade was also an atheist. He was such an integral part of the history of pornography, so much so that the word sadism was created from his name Sade. For those who are not aware of what sadism is, it's a deviation from quote-unquote regular pleasure and involves a desire to either inflict or take pain, or includes humiliation as the sexual drive. Sade was said to be into like incest, sodomy, flagellation, coprophilia, which is like scat, poo.
Corpophilia is eating poop and being into poop.
He would write about necrophilia and, of course, rape.
Ah, classic.
You know, sometimes really good weed smells like poop.
It's true.
Oh, it smells like skunk butt.
Just poopy.
More skunky.
So, in one case, Sade ended up getting arrested, and this was after he hired a widowed beggar woman to be his maid.
Uh-oh.
Hot.
When she entered his cabin, where she was to clean, he tied her to the bed, and he began whipping her relentlessly, after which he poured hot wax on her open wounds and told her that he would kill her if she stopped screaming. And this entire time he abused her, Sade vigorously beat his meat, getting off on the tortured cries. After this, he left her in a separate room so that he may tend to prostitutes in another room. The beaten woman maid escaped through a window and roused up an angry mob to deal with Sade. He only served 6 months, though, in prison because of his high status as an aristocrat.
Just like today.
Exactly.
Oh, blimey, he's just having himself a good time.
He's got a lot of money.
All right then, 6 months, we'll let you go.
So, beyond his actual crimes, his writings would go on to inspire some of the most atrocious serial killers the world has ever known, like Ted Bundy.
It is not terribly uncommon for people like Ted Bundy, and also just academic-minded people, to read the Marquis de Sade.
And also, I don't necessarily think that Ted Bundy is saying this quote I'm about to say altruistically to like help anybody. I don't know how true this is, but it's interesting that he says it.
Now, Ted Bundy used his brain quite a bit. Have you ever seen Silence of the Lambs when Buffalo Bill is trying to get the senator's daughter into the truck? So he has like an arm in a cast and he's like trying to get this couch up into his truck, and he preys on the goodwill of the senator's daughter to come over and be like, oh, I can help you put the thing in the truck. And then he like gets her in the truck and then beats her. Like, that's based on Ted Bundy. So this guy is a classic piece of shit, and he'll probably say anything. So just disclaimer.
So he said, quote, "It happened in stages, gradually. My experience with pornography that deals on a violent level with sexuality is once you become addicted to it, I would keep looking for more potent, more explicit, more graphic kinds of material until you reach a point where the pornography only goes so far, where you begin to wonder if maybe actually doing it would give that which is beyond just reading it or looking at it. Violence in the media," he said, quote, "particularly sexualized violence, sent boys down the road to being Ted Bundys," end quote. The FBI, he suggested, should stake out adult movie houses and fellow patrons as they leave, saying, quote, "You are going to kill me, and that will protect society from me. But out there are many, many more people who are addicted to pornography, and you are doing nothing about that."
He's basically like, it's not my fault. This is your fault.
Blame society.
So while Ted Bundy might be a little snakish with that quote and the statements, the part I find interesting is that it's telling us that porn is entertainment and not education. It seems like mainly the males today that consume porn assume that the sexual acts seen in porn is how you should behave with your partner. To go a bit further with this point, it seems like the males today are not satisfied with their partner unless they get to do whatever they want with them, which is not too different from the sadism point I am focusing on in the first place.
I mean, this is something that has been said, that young girls are having an even worse time with young males because the young males are suddenly expecting that their sexual partner, who may have been with nobody else or maybe one or two people, has to like do anal, and do all this like, really grown up advanced level sex stuff, right out the gate because they think that porn is normal. That's what's said at this point anyway.
Or just assume she wants to be choked and slapped and pulling hair without asking and stuff like that. It can damage relationships and like ruin bonding.
Generally you gotta like escalate to that or work yourself up to that, right?
Or talk about it. Get some help.
They don't show like the anal training kits that they use to like gradually get used to different size tapered butt plugs and stuff.
No,
they just think that you can fit on a finger and shove it in.
Down in the swamp, we used to use our fingers and a tin of Crisco.
And any smart woman who has a first interaction with some male that is like crossing lines, those are big red flags. I think, if the woman's like more mature, I think she'd be like, yeah, this guy's not grown up enough. Like he's an amateur. I think honestly, that's what that means.
Well, it's weird too, because women also, like young girls will also see the porn, or the males will have that expectation and it'll change their behavior by proxy. So it's a big mess.
I agree. It's like, oh, I have to be like this and not
have to put out on the first date, all this stuff.
So be entertained by it. Don't try to imitate it.
Because in terms of the biological aspect of masturbation, it seems to be fairly innocuous. While mentally speaking, there is, at least for some people, a risk of addiction with some added potential for relationship problems thrown in for good measure. But not always. Thus far, as long as compulsion is prevented from taking over one's life, beating your own meat is not really that big a deal. That being said, things do become a bit more complicated when we consider the spiritual dimension. But if you'd like to hear that part of the show, where we discuss semen retention and the spiritual practices related to it, hatha yoga, multiple orgasms of the male and female variety, what the f are refractory periods, Crowley's Eroto-Comatose Lucidity, how to find the clitoris and the G-spot, and both the Qabalistic and ancient Egyptian wanking perspectives, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended version of this show, but all of our shows from our back catalog of episodes that are conveniently browsable from right within Spotify. But if that's not all, I'll send you a 5x5 high quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server where you can discuss how you accidentally lost all your leg hair that one time. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew.